Chinese President Hu Jintao heads to Washington today. His visit comes amid worsening trade relations between the two nations over issues such as intellectual property rights, currency reform, and the widening U.S. trade deficit. Our next guest says the U.S. can't afford to offend China, especially during an election year. Ruben Mandahar is an associate professor at City University of Hong Kong. He joins us now. Ruben, talk about the comments that we had from Chinese President Hu Jintao, essentially saying they're not going to budge on their stance with the renminbi. It's not unexpected, but given that he's taken such a strong stand, can we expect anything to occur from these meetings?
No, this is a visit that is like a general talking shop visit. So I don't think anything of that magnitude will take place in this visit. Second point is that China really is not interested in being lectured at. And they want to show the world that they know what they're doing. So I don't think that they're going to budge, especially in the currency reform or the revaluation of the yuan issue.
Ruben, Michelle here in the United States. It's my understanding that there's been some talk about the fact that the presidents are having lunch together and not an official state dinner, and that perhaps this has caused a bit of loss of face in China for the president. Is that correct, or are we overstating some of the cultural issues or differences here?
No, in some way that is correct. You know, many issues will come out in this lunch. So you will have the Taiwan issue for sure. You will have the North Korea, which is, I think, the only country now, the only leader who can really press on North Korea is China. So, and I'm sure George Bush is going to hammer on that point as well. And then you have the human rights issue. That, you know, these days Bush has been pressing on this case of the North Korean who China sent back to North Korea. So, and then you have the security issues that covers Iran as well as the other actions of the United Nations Security Council in which China has to give a yes or a no or an abstention. So all those issues will come up.
There's a lot of talk about who needs who more. Does the U.S. need China more because of the situation with treasuries, or do the Chinese need the U.S. more because we buy so many of their goods? Talk to us about the amount of interdependence there.
Well, from the point of view of the U.S., of course, the mood is that the U.S. is needed more by China. But when you look at it from the international affairs perspective, you can see that it's truly an interdependent equation here. Because, you know, China is a reluctant superpower. So it even wants to downplay its economic growth. Its trade deficit with the U.S. is a fact, which is just not now, has been going on for some years. And it's not the fault of China. So I guess each country will have its vested interest, but from an international perspective, China has much more to gain from this visit.
Rubens, Ross here, you say China's a reluctant superpower, but it's only going to get more powerful and a bigger superpower in the future. How much does the rest of the world have to fear from China, not only economically, but perhaps politically?
That is the reason why this visit is important, because there are two reasons for this visit. One is China is sending a signal that anything and everything is open to discussion and that China is willing to discuss. So that China is not like going to bury its head in the sand or to close shop. So they're willing to talk about anything. But it also wants to signal that China is here to be reckoned with, that it's not someone that, you know, has to be forgotten, that this is really now a power that you have to take into account.
Ruben, it's Maura again. At the same time, though, China does not seem to want to take responsibility that comes with being a superpower or a rising power. That has been some of the criticism rallied against China. Do you think that China is doing that on purpose, perhaps, or do you think that they just don't quite realize their ascendancy?
Well, there are two ways to look at this. You see, China is a new boy in the game of world superpower politics. They just came out recently. Deng Xiaoping just opened China in 1978. So it's not really that they don't want intentionally, it's that they are learning the ropes. If you look at the past 10 years, how much China has learned in international politics. Even now, Hu Jintao is taking along his wife like any first lady in world politics. That was not the case of Jiang Zemin, for example. So you can see that even in these ways, China is showing that, okay, they're willing to play the game. But at the same time, you have to give China some time. They are learning. They are a new boy, and they are not ready to take up the responsibility that goes with the prestige of being a superpower.
All right, Ruben, thank you for joining us today. That was Ruben Mandahar, Associate Professor of City University of Hong Kong.